Hello, welcome to the Baltimore IGDA. This is going to be our second interview series. So we're going to be interviewing with Ashley and Kyrstin from Boba Studios, which is a locally women-owned and operated local indie game studio. They also are part of the DC IGDA, so we're able to have a very interesting panel this time. So again, my name is Ryan Griffin. I work at BitReactor, working on a new project that I can't talk too much about, but it is a big AAA project working with Disney and Star Wars. So I will talk about that a little bit later. But welcome, Ashley and Kyrstin. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ryan. Thank
Hi.
you for having us.
Yeah, like last time we actually met up at one of our local meetups actually on our YouTube. I actually have two new recordings from two of our speakers that actually had great presentations on accessibility and tools within games, as well as creature design and making creatures within ZBrush. And that was by Derek Lynn and Kevin Stenham. So I again encourage you to be able to check out that on our YouTube. But this time around, we're actually going to be talking about Boba Studios. So could you introduce me a little bit to Boba Studios?
Absolutely. So we're Boba Studios. I'm Ashley Guchhait. I do game design, writing, UI for Boba Studios.
And I'm Kyrstin Cooksey. I do art and animation for the game, and then for the business, we kind of like tackle all of the roles together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're a small studio, so there's definitely a lot of like wearing multiple hats
Mhm.
and sharing them between us. But I
Absolutely.
think that's like, the really cool part about being indie is that you kind of just can do all of it. It's really fun.
So this is going to be Boba Studio's website here. So could you be able to talk a little bit about your website and a little bit about your games?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a website that we put together actually just before doing our Kickstarter. We had been planning to set up a website before then, but it was kind of having that Kickstarter that like really like put this kind of on a deadline, which was great that we now have it. Um, and yeah, so yeah, as you can see, like it takes you to the Kickstarter webpage where yeah, we ran this Kickstarter to kind of refund um, like kind of the ability to buy back some of these plushies that we've made. Um, and then additionally create a new character Cammy so that she can kind of accompany the original Squirrely Root plushies.
Yeah, and so they all relate to the whole Kickstarter
Mhm.
campaign relates to our game Squirrely Your Rabbit, which is currently in development. It is a 2.5D puzzle adventure game based on color theory. And so, as you're seeing a little bit of the trailer, this is actually the original version of the Squirrely Roo before we went ahead and rebuilt it from the ground up. But it started out as our thesis project at the Maryland State College of Art, and that's what really inspired us to, make a game studio. I know that was part of like my interest in going to art school is to make a game studio, and we found each other. We really liked making games together, and so Squirrely Roo is kind of the culmination of that and the other games that we had built. And we ran this Kickstarter campaign, as Kyrstin said, to get some of our merchandise back, which actually helps us fund our game while it's in development.
It's amazing. I absolutely love these character designs. It's one of the things that you can obviously tell that on the showroom floor, like being able to see Boba Studio like from across the hall, you can instantly tell that is yours. I'm always like intrigued by seeing any updates that you have for it. Do you
Thank
have
you so much.
this like other thing here, this inside scoop, or is it mostly just Squirrely Root Rabbit?
Mostly Squirrely Roo in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like what we're working on right now. We do want to release the inside scoop. We started it for a game
Mm-hmm.
jam, and we actually like prioritized like testing the game and building it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Inside Scoop is a card game. It's a hidden role game as
Oh.
well. And so if you're familiar like with like One Night Ultimate Werewolf or like similar games like that, you're kind of taking on this role of being a food critic, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't want other people to know that you are. And so like you're trying out these different restaurants. And so the inside scoop we do have on our itch.io, but what we didn't finish in the game jam was like the final cards. And so that's kind of the thing that's holding us back from releasing that, is that all of our energy right now is going into Squirrely Roo. But we absolutely intend to finish the inside scoop. And we have like 9 other games as a studio.
Wow.
Several have come from jams
Yeah.
that we do intend to work on and like complete after we do Squirrely Roo. So I think, you know, we have like a clearer road ahead of us. We know, you know, what we're doing now, what we intend to do. And we're just trying to make that happen. Like just, you know, be able to make games and tell our story.
For sure. So, how did the two of you meet? Was it like at Mica? Was it before? Like what kind of was the genesis for making Boba Studios?
Yeah, I feel like we can both touch on it a little bit. Yeah, so we met at MICA. Ashley had started in 2013. I started in 2014. So we're actually a year apart, but because of the way that our different majors kind of were set up, we ended up taking a lot of classes together. So I'm primarily an animation major, and I did game arts as a minor. And Ashley is, at the time it was called interactive arts, but focused on game design. So yeah, what we did was during these classes, we would work on projects together. As the MICA classes are kind of set up to have kind of a major project each semester, with like each week having like a smaller demo that you'd have to complete by the time the next class met. Yeah, so for some of those bigger projects, we worked together and found that we had a lot of like good compatibility with working together, but then also like a lot of the same interests in both games and like what we wanted to make. Yeah, that kind of started our working together in the long term.
Yeah, yeah. And the first game that we ever made together was this game called Pocket Fox, where unlike all the games that you see now, actually, I did the art for. I took the lead on that. But most of our games now, Kyrstin takes the lead on. And so that was like really cool. I'd love to bring that back because it was really fun. Like I feel like designing everything. But the color mechanic in Pocket Fox was like you were going into the forest to save your little friend who got like kidnapped by the forest effectively. And so we had like all of these like plant inspired creatures, and they were all like based on warm and cool colors. And so you had to like use different abilities to fight, like, and to interact with them, to get your friend back. And that was all based on like if they were warm or cool. And so that's really like what inspired us to make a color themed mechanic with Squirrely Roo and get that started. I know, as I mentioned, and I think Kirsten mentioned, Squirrely Roo was our thesis project. And so at the end of your time at MICA, and I think this is true for most art schools, you do like a big project to show like the culmination of your experience there. Um, and I had double majored, and so I was interested in kind of trying to see if I could get one project approved. Spoiler alert, I did not. I had to do two. Um, and so that was kind of why we went into Squirrely Roo not knowing what we were going to make, but knowing that we definitely wanted it to be a story-based game because we're both heavily interested in story. And that would have made it work for my other major, which was humanistic studies. And then I also had a heavy focus in art history. And so we kind of, you know, wanted to get that, but it didn't end up working out because there, like, the stipulation was we had to prove that the script of Squirrely Roo was going to be long enough to match like a thesis count. And I can tell you now, absolutely, Squirrely Roo Rabbit's script is longer than the thesis paper that I wrote. I ended up doing like a creative writing story, and
Oh,
Squirrely Roo is absolutely longer than that.
wow.
But at the time, we couldn't prove it. And so having this idea of like we wanted it to be story based, and then we weren't really sure what we wanted to do mechanically, and then we ended up talking, well, let's explore that color theory thing more. And those two together kind of merge this idea of pop-up books. And so that's where we get like the 2.5D perspective, where it's like
Yeah.
3D like our world, but everything in it is meant to look like paper craft, or like paper dolls. And you can kind of see like through that gif right there that like we really were inspired by like these old illustrated storybooks like Winnie the Pooh, or like pop-up versions of that. And I know like we pulled out like a ton of pop-up books and we're looking at them, and that's like really what really like hammered in the aesthetic in the
Yeah.
world of this game, and this idea that each level is going to be a different page of this pop-up book that we're creating. And one of our great friends, who's also an indie game dev, was the one who like inspired Squirrely Roo, because he was like, my niece really likes these animals, and so I made a character for her, but he doesn't really work on cute games. Like, he wanted to see the character go somewhere, so that way his niece could like see her character or like her idea in a game. And so that's how we ended up getting like this idea of Squirrely Roo being this hybrid animal. Um, and yeah, we've kind of run with that.
Yeah, I absolutely love the pop up mechanic because like not mechanic but art style and design choices because like I also as a kid had those pop up books. I think I had one that was like a dinosaur one, I think, and like I
That sounds
love
right.
that one because like I am actually a 3D artist, and so I had that and I had like another like historical book where you would like you were a time traveler that like went through like different parts of history and stuff, which happened to coincide with my work at my previous job at Oxide Games, where I worked on Aura History Untold, working on the buildings. So funny how things work together, but that's why you always want to find that inspiration and culminate that and bring that into new work. So that is amazing, and I absolutely love being able to have that culmination of what really inspires like new game ideas. And game jams are wonderful. We have a lot of those around here as well. Like there's a lot of them which happen every year, so it's always good to generate new ideas and collaborate with new people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons we love game jams so much.
Yeah.
Especially working on like a long-term project. It's really like refreshing and
Mm-hmm.
inspiring to get started on something new and to go through that process of like just, I don't know, pure inspiration, coming up with things, trying to see what can work.
For sure, absolutely, and I like to when
Mm-hmm.
we do game jams too, like take
Yeah.
that as an opportunity to like learn a new skill like every time. Like so say like one of the game jams we did, I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
okay, I want to like practice like rigging a character, right? And then that
Yeah.
could bring that skill back to our project,
Right.
while like kind of having like both like a break, but then like kind of a like a moment to like be inspired by a new project.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's the thing that can happen is like you can learn a new skill or try something new, but then it's also refreshing to get away from like the thing that you've been kind of grinding on for a while. So it can be a challenge with it, but it also just breeds like new ideas. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I think that's a number of things on this front. Uh, can you talk a little bit about the IGDA DC?
Absolutely.
Do you want to start?
Sure. We actually, so we are a Baltimore-based studio. And during our time at Mica, we really wanted to start getting like connected with the game scene, before we graduated. And like it was time to be a professional, like when we were like kind of still working toward that. And so we really wanted to know what everybody was doing. And we'd heard that there was an IGDA chapter that met bi-weekly that was actually run by Melanie Stegman. She was at the Baltimore
Yes,
meeting the other week too with
yes,
us.
yes.
She lives in Baltimore now too, so that's kind of cool. We're like all here together. Um, but she had started up that chapter and it met every other week and was super indie friendly, which was a little bit different than like kind of how the Baltimore scene was at the time, which was like very daunting. And we've always gone to both. Um, but it was really cool like having a group that like knew your project and knew what it was that you were going to do, and like once a month you could come in and check in on your game, and then once a month there was like a speaker talk where somebody would like come in and like talk about their expertise on something like that. And so yeah, we've really been going to IGA DC since 2016, I believe, early like early 2016. um and then at some point, I think on 2018, I hopped on the board, and then you did not too long after that. And we really were like working on, making IGADC like a more, represent more groups, like having more women, having more devs of color and everything like that. And so that was a really great initiative, being able to connect and give back to our community in so many of the ways that like we as Boba Studios want to, and like make a video games a space where like all of us can be here and all of us can have our own stories and have that, have that
Mm,
exchange and
mhm.
information shared.
Yeah.
Of course, when, COVID hit, like things
Oh.
changed a little bit. And I think like our focus with IGDA DC at the time and kind of our focus at Boba Studios. So COVID hit, and as I mentioned before, we've been rebuilding Squirrely Roo from the ground up.
Mhm.
We took Squirrely Roo to maybe like 100, 150 shows before we started rebuilding it before COVID hit from the time that we graduated. And we knew a lot about it. We knew a lot of like, what it is that we wanted to change, what people were really like enjoying and where we wanted to take it. And,
Mhm.
how when you're outside of that scope where you have to like have something to show that's different in class each week for
Mhm.
thesis.
Mhm.
That like there were things that we skipped like pre-production to try to make that work, or that Squirrely Roo is primarily a puzzle game, and it's a lot easier to build in action scenes as like a buffer than to have like like 15 very mediocre puzzles. And
Mhm.
so what we did was we spent our time doing like fully drawing out like really like skewer but bigger and like more thought out puzzles, and then we kind of like fluffed around that to try to make it work. um and so that was like something we had our eye on, and we were like, okay, let's go back, let's fix the level design now that we have time to just do all that pre-production. Let's rewrite that story. With Squirrely Roo, so much of the concept is like about her being like this hybrid animal in this space, with all of like these other animals whose colors are getting changed. And what is it that we as people, like what can we put into that story and talk about what that exchange is. And so as as somebody who is mixed myself, the experience of who Squirrely Root is very important to me.
Mhm.
And so I want to tell that story properly, like sit
Mhm.
down and let it like rewrite it out first, and then we can make sure that it's in the game. And with story games and game design, you're right, you're like you're designing the story around the game design, you're designing the game design around the story, and it's a very like a cyclical process where everything is feeding into everything. It can be pretty slow.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what inspired what IGDA DC did, is that we were sitting here and we're like, we can't show our game because one, we're rebuilding it, and two, we can't go outside. And we're rebuilding it because we can't go outside, but we needed to do it anyway. So what can we do for our community? And indie devs had nowhere to show. And so like all of the IGDA chapters that we knew of had shut down.
Mhm.
We watched the Virginia and the New York City one and everything, and try to go to them when we can. And so we're like, nobody is like having any space where indie devs can share. And so that became the priority of IGDADC, was that we shifted to an online model,
Mhm.
and then be prepared when we came back to shift to a hybrid model.
Mhm.
And so we made those moves as fast as we could, because we just really wanted a space where everybody could show their games, and that we weren't like losing that context. That's so vital to making an indie game, is reception and feedback. And you're not going to be there when your game releases to go and like
Mhm.
go to somebody's house and see that they're playing right.
Yeah, it was
And
literally like night and
what we
day.
ended up making was incredible. Like we had people, I know people were joining us as far as Mexico,
Wow.
to come to the IGADC sessions, and I think there were other
Mm.
countries as well, but I don't. You only know like as far as what people tell you,
Mm.
right? And so we just had people from all over coming to sit in and share their indie games in that time, and that was really, or like really inspiring. I'm really glad that we did that.
Mm.
Yeah, and I felt like it was important for the time, with everyone kind of being at home.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it was very encouraging to go and then like kind of be able to talk to the same people um, that you would have talked to in person.
Right. Yeah, you didn't like lose contact with those
Right.
people. And then when we came back too, it was like, well, now all of this game, like I've been hearing you, I've been seeing like maybe some people could do remote sessions,
Right.
where people could play it remotely, but it's just different to be like in front of it and tactile. And that was really awesome too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing that also occurred with the Baltimore IGDA as well. We also had a very similar experience, and we were actually a little late to transitioning to that online model, because we had a transition in presidents. So it was a challenge as well to be able to both kickstart that and get a new president who had the same energy to kind of bring that forward. And I actually was able to. become the new president. But Tronster, who is one of our local game devs working at Firaxis Games as a programmer for more than 20 years at this point, he had actually helped to refound the Baltimore IGDA several times, and he took up the mantle again. And then I was able to take over that mantle this past year. So we're at a much better spot because we do also have that hybrid model of online as well as in person. So and being able to talk with the IGDA DC and being able to take clues as to, hey, let's do what they're doing. So they're actually like organizing online stuff, and it's like, man, like we should really do that too. So it was fun. It was
I
fun.
think that's what's great about having so many chapters close
Yeah.
by, because I know like we absolutely like look to you all too. And
Mm-hmm.
um well, Kyrstin and I, we're not on the board
Mm-hmm.
anymore as of the end of last year. I think it was getting time to be like,
Mm-hmm.
Squirrely Roo and Boba stuff. It's gotten so
Mm-hmm.
like it's getting so much bigger that we're making decisions on like, can we be at the meetup this week, or
Mm-hmm.
is there this other Boba thing? And with it being our indie studio,
Mm-hmm.
like it always comes first,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want to like hold the chapter back. And so
Yeah, and I
we
understand
were,
that
though, I
too. Yeah,
looking at
as
Baltimore store.
yeah, I understand that too as president for the Baltimore IGDA. Like I'm also kind of challenging that too. But then I'm also working full time at a AAA studio, so I have the production work that I should do as well. So it's a balance between your kind of like social, volunteer, and professional lives.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of look at my notes here for the next couple of questions here. Can you talk a little bit about MAGfest? Like that was like a little while ago, but you'll have gone to MAGfest, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had a booth probably 3 or 4
Hmm.
times since we started with Squirrely Roo. Do you want to talk a little bit about MagFest?
Sure. Yeah, I can start with just kind of explaining a little bit about.
Hmm.
Yeah, so MAGfest is a music and gaming festival. It has the largest indie game section at a convention, I think, on the East Coast or maybe even America. But it's completely free to indies. So it's an incredible opportunity for anybody who is making a game to kind of be able to show there for a bunch of reasons. You can bring your game to the public so that you can kind of get it into people's hands, right? So that you can see how they play it, how they like it, like what to work on from there, as well as like kind of like get your name out there. It's an incredible space for that, and the community that goes to MAGFest is incredibly supportive, both the staff and the attendees. Everyone I always talk to is always like so interested and invested and excited to play all the indie games. So it's like a really great space to be in as an indie developer. Um, but yeah, so you said we had gone 3 or 4 times, and for all of those reasons we go. It's a great place to connect with other indie developers as well, and then with us as we kind of sell merchandise as well. It kind of fulfills like all of these things, right? Like we can show people our game, we can get that feedback from them. We can meet people who are like really invested and interested in indie games. Um, and then we can also sell merchandise to help like fund our game development.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like one of the great things about MagFest is just that, or like the MIV section specifically, is that there's a lot of like indie games. There's a lot of really experimental stuff. There's like an alt control section right behind us. There's arcade where people are making like their own cabinets. Like you can really be making any. I think there's a tabletop section too,
Hmm.
and you just
Yes.
really can make any sort of game. And people at MagFest want to play it. It's super cool. It's a 24-hour convention, which I know like as a kid going to conventions, I was always like, why do they stop at night? I want to do 24 hours. And so it's kind of like, whoa, wait, they're doing the thing that I wanted.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, it's such a tight knit community. I mean, I would say like some of our best friends now are people that we've met through MagFest and through that showcase. And MagFest was the first place where we got interviewed by somebody, both like they like played our game and like had a video. It was a place where we got like an article interview. We haven't had this experience at MAGfest specifically, but other people we know got contacted by their first publishers
Oh, wow.
through MAGfest, and versus like we had that experience like at online connections. But it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of a place where anything, you know, can happen because everybody there is such a big fan of games, and that's what we all want to do, right? Is like make games and play games, and
Mhm.
those are like your people. So
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Have you
this year for
have you heard about a convention called Unpub?
I have.
Mm. Yeah,
Don't they like particularly specialize in tabletop?
tabletops, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a guest last summer that was doing tabletop. We had a double header with Ed Beach, who is a Phyraxian, as well as Elizabeth Hargrave, who makes Wingspan. She is also one of our local tabletop celebrities, as you can say. Uh, my family, like, personally absolutely loves Wingspan, so we always try to be able to shout out Wingspan. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
like,
such a great game. We heard that she was going to be there and we took our copy and we are like, please
yeah,
sign
yes,
it.
please.
yeah,
So now our copy is signed.
for sure. Yeah, Wingspan is great.
Yeah, I would love to do Pub when we go back and visit
Mm,
our tabletop game that you were showing on Itch
Yeah.
earlier.
mhm. Yeah, I would definitely suggest going. I know that it's going to be pretty soon. I think it's at the end of March, so it's coming up soon. It might be like 2 weekends from now. So definitely check it out because it's free for people who like showcase their games, I believe. So
It's really
yeah,
cool.
definitely check it out.
There's so many cool conventions out there.
Yeah, yeah. There's always something going on around here because like we got like two pretty big chapters. We have a lot of like triple A's. We have like large studios. We have small studios and everything in between. So that's pretty much a little bit about MagFest. Can you talk a little bit about Mike, your experiences at Mica?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
You want to start there?
Sure. Yeah, I felt like with Micah, I felt like it was a great opportunity. I mean, of course, you go there for schooling,
Mm-hmm.
um, but as somebody who entered as a kind of a traditional arts background,
Mm-hmm.
it was great to be able to go and then I guess just like try out different mediums. And then after your first year, in theory you'd pick a major, and so from there I was like, okay, I think I want to do something like more digital than
Mm-hmm.
like pen and paper drawings, as much as I do love them, which is kind of why I got into animation. And then from there into game design as well. I think in my first year I had taken um, kind of one of each like type of class, I guess, sort of to say,
Yeah.
like one of each major effectively. And so the two extras I got to add on were animation and game design, and I felt like if I could kind of combine those, that would be what I'd love because it kind of like animation and game design kind of is so multidisciplinary. It kind of like touches on almost every type of art, right? Like you have to be able to animate, you have to be able to do like 2D or 3D depending on what you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you'd write scripts, you'd write code, you'd make music. There's so much that goes into a game. So I felt like it was kind of great to be able to kind of do all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. In my experience, I also went to MICA as a traditionally trained artist. Um, but I knew what I wanted to get out of it was like to learn the more digital side because I just like didn't have that experience. Like the only digital art that we had available in my public schooling was photo.
Oh,
And
okay.
like that's
Okay.
not, you know, like they
Yeah.
didn't even do like any sort of tablet drawing or anything like
Mm,
that. And I knew that I wanted to have like a small business when I graduated, and like that's what I wanted to do. And that's part of the reason why I picked Mica. The other being that it's a very like academic art school too, which I find is really great for if you're interested in the humanities at all,
mm,
creative writing, art history, anything like that. And so I was really excited about that part as well. Like our faculty is amazing. There's Sam,
mm-hmm.
who's the head of the game
Yep.
design department. um our staff are amazing. Like they're probably the most dedicated people you will ever meet. when you're in college, absolutely please take advantage of the offices, like the staff that they have, because it's not just in the classroom, it's everything else.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I think like that's a huge part of what we got from Mica
Mm-hmm.
is that, of course, in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
but Mica is actually the reason that we were able to turn Boba Studios into an LLC. I work studied in the career development office my whole time there because again, I knew I wanted to start my own business. So I was like, okay, I've got to be strategic about like, what am I learning and where am I working? And when we were there, I don't know if it was the year before we started or the year that I started, they announced that there was going to be a creative entrepreneurship competition coming to the campus.
Oh.
And so that we worked into my thesis and Kyrstin's thesis. We're a year apart. So Squirrely was actually a thesis project for 2 years. And for both of those years, we worked partially in how we were going to build this studio. And so it was like never about just the game, it was about building the studio. And so we competed for funding to get Boba Studios, to become a real business.
Mm-hmm.
And it took 2 tries actually. On our second try, we were awarded the funding. They turned Boba Studios into an LLC, got us set up with like the lawyers and our banks and all of that stuff. And so that's just like another amazing opportunity that they have is that like it's not just like things like in the classroom. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, there are ways to turn your art into something that like will feed you, into something that will house you, because like art is kind of inherently entrepreneurial if you
Mm-hmm.
want to live off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like part of the drive, I think, for a lot of our indie scene. A lot of our indie scene, both in the DC and Baltimore areas, like there is a lot of indies around that are trying to like make their games and make them a viable product, and being able to go to conventions and get that feedback and get their names out there. Being able to have podcasts like this or video interviews, like going to GDC, which is also happening right now. Like all of these things are great for being able to get that exposure, as well as being able to start businesses. That because we all have to kind of start somewhere, and being able to have creatives that are making new things and innovative things is important in the space.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I also went to a different school locally, which was UMBC, which has a very similar kind of background to Micah. However, it was more of a broad education, and it had a smaller art department. But Micah is always the big dog when it comes to art education in the area. But me as the IGDA president, I actually go and try to talk to a lot of the local universities and give back in some kind of way to students to be able to help connect them to our local industries and help them find success.
Absolutely. I feel like that's something like we try to do not just like with students but with indie devs in general, is that like a lot of what we've had to do, we had to figure out for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
like, going to MAGfest that first time and
Mm-hmm.
realizing like, oh my gosh, like we don't even have the stuff
Yeah.
to make somebody stop and look at our game.
Yep.
Like I think we were a little bit lucky because we used Squirrely's thesis or Squirrely as a thesis project in our commencement exhibition to kind of like find those things that we could use to get people to stop and look at Squirrely
Mm-hmm.
Roo. And that was only really because we had already gone to a few gaming events where we weren't like really showing it, or we showed in a much smaller, like you just have like a poster and business cards in your laptop set up. And we were kind of like on the ground learning that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
way before we graduated. So we could like, actually like get our name out there and like go hard at that. And like, I wouldn't change anything that we did, but I do think like if other people don't have to go through that struggle of
Mm-hmm.
figuring it out themselves, like they can, instead of going out and having to like, drive somewhere, find access to a car,
Mm-hmm.
drive somewhere, maybe pay to get into this event if it's, if it's paid, if it's not. Sometimes like there are smaller events where they're like unpaid to get in, but they don't always necessarily have like the big booth setups that are like telling you what you're going to be expected to bring when you get into that show. And so like just having that information is like a resource. Like can we talk about it? Like, do you want to hit us up and ask questions? Can we, be in a panel where we talk about making an indie studio? For a long time too, we were making our monthly newsletter. Like every other month, we were talking about a Squirrelier update, and every other month, we were talking about like more like indie development, like theory type thing. Like, what is it that you need to do to be an indie dev? What does tabling look like? What does recording this music look like? All of those things, which we kind of stopped when we ran our Kickstarter. And at some point, we do need to pick up our newsletter again because there are a lot of people like waiting, for an update. And we tend to prioritize updating the Kickstarter backers right now as we're like, making sure all those rewards ship. But that was something that we had prioritized, was like to share the information we've learned with everybody, because I don't know, why does everybody need to find it out individually? Like if we share it, lift each other up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and that's
yeah,
like part of the challenge as an indie game dev, because like you gotta be developer, you gotta be accountant, you gotta be marketing, you gotta be like
absolutely.
production, like there's all these things as a student that you don't kind of realize that like you kind of need until you're kind of in there doing it, or you have exposure to that at a business, right? And that's
Right.
you normally working like once you graduate, and then have a opportunity as like an intern, or you're starting out your career, or if you want to go more of an entrepreneurial route as well, because I do know like several people who run their own businesses as well, and they kind of have to learn on the fly, or they know somebody who kind of does what they want to do, and then they're able to kind of pick their brain about it. And then
Yeah,
you also have to be brave to be able to actually go out there and actually do all the things that you kind of dreamed about doing, right? Like there's a bunch of steps, but being able to live that life, that's something that's challenging, but it can be very rewarding as well.
for sure.
That's yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. So we're probably at about the half an hour mark or so. Um, so let's see here. Um, what challenges have both you kind of faced this past year or so? Because like the um, the past year has kind of been a little challenging for like game dev in general, with everything going on. Like what kind of challenges have both you kind of faced with game development?
I don't even know where to start that.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It's a
Well, I think,
challenging one.
one thing, as we've already started touching on it, is that we ran a Kickstarter.
Mm,
And like one thing nobody tells you
mm,
when when you're starting a business is that like, um, there are so many hats, but you can't
mm,
possibly wear all of them at once, right? And this Kickstarter was our first experience. It was truly amazing, and we got fully backed. And we had people like asking us even afterwards, like, I totally forgot to back your thing. Can I still back it? And the list keeps growing, and that is an amazing thing. It also means like, you can't work on your game,
mm, mm,
right? It's like, is today the day that I'm gonna pack like 30 packages, and we're doing handwritten notes, we're doing hand signed posters, and then each poster also gets a note if the person like requests it, but everybody automatically gets a note in their bag. Everybody who gets plushies, got to pick the color ribbons. Squirrely always gets 3 tied ribbons together that, we do hand cut, and then we hand paint so they don't fray, and then we tie them, and it's like, you one package can easily take like multiple
oh
hours,
yeah, oh
and
yeah.
you can do a bunch of those and then get them in the packaging, get the labels printed, or you can work on your game. And so I think like, that's been kind of a challenge of, I think, of this past year, is that like the amount that we wanted to work on our game was not the amount that we worked on our
Mm,
game, because you think you're going to come and do this faster, and then you find out our plushies are delayed. Oh wait, no, they're delayed
mm,
again. And like, you can try to get ahead and do all the things like in advance, right? Like as merch was coming in, we hand check all of it. And so when enamel pins came in, um, there were like 2 designs. We got like
mm.
500 each,
Can
But
can you show
right?
those?
yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
So, this is normally what the enamel pins look like. These are not the
Ooh,
ones that
look at
came with the
those.
Kickstarter packages,
Oh,
unfortunately.
Yes.
oh, that's just so
Um,
cute.
we got
Little
3 new
little
designs.
gecko and pink. Oh,
And so
it's
these are
great.
available at our online shop. They're available at conventions with
Mm,
us. And they also fund our game.
mm,
And so yeah, we absolutely love making new merch.
mm,
Every so often we have somebody come up to our booth and they're like, I've bought everything. When are you making something new? And we're like, that's when you go like,
mm,
oh, okay,
Oh
it
no.
is okay for me to
mhm,
like dial back on my game a bit and make this other merch. And it's just like finding times to like know that it's okay
mhm,
to put something on the back burner. And that's actually why we put the newsletter on the back burner,
mhm,
is that to do not just talking about the updates of our game, but to give like this essay that somebody can actually learn about every month. It took like a few days out of every month,
mm,
and a few days out every month to do a newsletter, a few days to design new merch, several days to go to events, a few days to go and hit up stores to see if they would carry our merch,
yeah, it's a packed schedule,
and
right?
then many days to development. It's like all of that adds up. And then when do you be
Mm,
a person?
mhm,
And so
yeah.
I think that was my thing with the challenge, is like how um you have to know that you have to be able to give yourself grace,
Mm,
right? And that
yeah, we're all human, right?
like right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like we're not just only human.
Mm,
It's like we're a collection
mhm,
of people that have independent needs from each
mhm,
other, that have independent relationships,
mm,
that have independent like wants. If we, for example, like we could just work on our game and not ever play any video games, but we won't learn anymore.
mm.
If you're not playing other people's games and you're
Yeah,
not
you gotta
experiencing it.
grow.
And I know I can feel guilty for like taking a break, and
Mm.
that's not you know
Th-
going to set us up to make this studio that like we've loved and we've dreamed about, wasn't so you just like feel like you're like a prisoner to your
mm,
promise, right? And so I think that's part of it.
mhm,
um and like a really big thing is that you just need to know like,
mhm.
yeah, sometimes we do need to be the people that are like, okay, we need to do taxes, it's February. Sometimes
Yeah, I gotta do
we
that
do need
too.
to be like, our fans are asking for merch, so we have to design new stuff. And
Right.
we're both very interdisciplinary
Mm,
artists. I think that's why we love video games so much, and you touched on that
mm,
earlier. And so I think like it feels very rewarding for us to step away from this project for a little bit and look at a different medium,
mhm,
and whether that's like drawing out the designs for enamel pins or hand painting art prints or anything like that. It's all just like a little piece,
Mhm.
and like what we like, and how we identify as artists, I
mm.
should say.
Yeah, and
Yeah, do you have something to add on the challenge,
yeah,
or
I would love
Oh
to
no,
hear it.
like you like covered it for the my thought too was, as you were like kind of explaining this, was like I feel like seeing changes in the game and then like these merch is like really kind of like the tip of the iceberg to like everything that
Mm,
we do behind the scenes.
right,
Like
right,
that's like the tip that like people like see, but then even within that, it's like how much of the game do you see like change too, right? Like I could spend
right,
like a week working on like a dialogue system, right?
right,
But then like nobody would technically see that,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So
just a
it's like
few weeks
the
ago,
tip of the
mm.
iceberg.
yeah, we updated one of our like camera
It was
systems,
like
and then it broke the camera.
Oh.
And then we didn't catch that. I don't know how we didn't, like, at one point we were playing it, because you play it so often that you almost sometimes stop seeing it, and you have to make
Mm,
sure that
mhm.
and that's why it's important to make sure other people are seeing it
Yeah,
too.
looking at it from
um
new eyes and getting somebody who's never played your game and
for
it does it
sure.
in a new way that it's like, oh wait, everybody does it this way, but this person does this way. Like
Exactly.
how did this occur?
Right,
And then you kind of
right.
stop them and be like, okay, like what did you do to like get that so I can repro it, right?
Exactly.
absolutely.
And we were like, we had this camera bug, and then at some point one of our friends was like, hey, the camera doesn't move
Oh.
in that level. And we were like,
Oh.
and what it was is not that it wasn't tracking you, but it was only tracking you. And we've gone in the Squirrely Brew remake, we've very intentionally set up scenes to have dynamic cameras. So as you move throughout like her house, it'll switch from different camera to different camera to different camera, to give you more like personal and dynamic experience of like seeing the world through her eyes, kind of thing. not, which isn't to say it's a first person game, it is a third person game, but we just like want, you know,
Well, it's
the
still a very story driven game.
to feel
So
very
yeah.
immersive. And at some point somebody said that and I was like, wait, what? And we're going back in our GitHub trying to figure out when this broke. And the entire process probably took like a week to fix. Right. And then it ended up, we couldn't even figure out how to do it. We had to message like one of those like boards.
The support board or something.
Yeah, but it was for the specific plugin of Cinemachine. And then they were like, hey, when you updated Cinemachine, did you update this part as well? And we were like,
okay.
no, I thought it, I thought when it updated everything. Well, that fixed it. And it was like a week dedicated to just apparently nothing because the entire time it was just hitting this other update button too. And if I build that game today and took it to a convention tomorrow, that week wouldn't exist to anybody that played it, right? Because the game would look exactly the same at the beginning and the end of it. And
because it's how it's supposed to function, right?
The iceberg, right?
Yeah.
You're exactly right with
that. And that's part of game dev, but at the same time, like as a fellow game dev, like I had a similar problem a month or two ago where I was working on this like AAA asset. And I was staying up, I had this issue where I had to like update to the next like Unreal Engine update, right? But then that also had a like graphical update, or it required a graphical update, and so I did that. So I was in parallel with the rest of the team, right? And then I was having issues rendering out my textures, and so I was like baking stuff and then rendering out textures, and like it would crash. And I'm like doing like 4K textures, right? And they're supposed to take like, I don't know, 10 minutes to like bake that, but this was going for like 40 minutes and then crashing, and I'm like, what is happening? I spent like a entire day like trying, and it Ada didn't work. And eventually I was like, okay, let me just revert like my graphics card back, and then like worked just fine. But if I try to play the game, I have issues, but I can render my textures, so that's what matters.
That's so weird. And so like, so now you're not like in line with everyone else on the team?
Yeah, so I have to wait for an update for Substance Painter. Then I can get that, and then I'll be in parallel with the rest of the team. But I'm not really working on a lot of different textures in the game. So like I'm working on a very small compartmentalized thing, so I can only work on that piece, but I don't need to work on like huge swaths of the game. So
right.
Yeah.
That works out.
It
right
does.
now.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, I think that covers a lot. So we talked about a little bit of the challenges for the last year or so. What are you looking forward to for like good things for the coming year? Like conventions or like milestones or
I think we're doing like a little bit fewer conventions this year, which ended up actually being true last year too. But I know we do have good shows coming up. We're doing the Enoch Pratt Library.
Yeah, that's right.
We are going to be doing. We are trying to figure out how we can do Otakon. Otakon's our biggest show every year. It's our favorite show. We have a scheduling conflict. And so we are trying to figure that out. So that way, you know, we can be there because it really is our best show.
Yeah, and that's like at least like 20K like people or more. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, there's more now, I think.
Yeah.
Can't remember the count from last year specifically, but it's a lot of people at the show. And I grew up going to that show, so it has like a really special place in my heart. So so I think we're doing Playthrough Con probably, which is in North Carolina in October. This is their first time being in October. It has always fallen the same week as GDC up until this year. And they were like, we need to change that.
Yeah, to get more
That's a fantastic
attendance.
show, and the organizers are like amazing people. Um, I think it's really nice. We both keep talking about how like we're really excited to just kind of work on the game.
Well,
Our
that's
Kickstarter like rewards are like pretty much done.
mhm.
We have a few more. The last thing that we need to do is we're doing handmade carrot
Ooh,
accessories for some people as
okay.
a special tier. And so we're gonna be putting on our sewing hats
Mm.
like maybe next week and be working on getting those done and so then we can ship
Mm.
them and it'll be nice to return to that. But I think they also a really amazing thing is that we have the little plushies back
Yeah.
in stock.
Yeah.
I
Ooh.
would love
Ooh, look at
to
them.
share them.
Oh, that's
And
sweet.
so as Kirsten mentioned earlier, we now have Cammy available too. It's not just
Ooh,
Squirrely Roo,
nice.
but we do have Squirrely Roos back. And
Oh.
so we'll be able to have those at shows again because
Mm,
we ran out of plushies, we ran out of the Squirrely
mm,
Roos, which came also from that grant that Micah gave
mhm.
us. And they came in right before COVID hit. We sold 6. And then COVID hit, we sold, I don't even know, like 5
Mm,
online during COVID. It was such a time.
mhm,
And then we got out of COVID and we just this was like our first time having any piece of merch that was so expensive,
mm,
honestly.
mm,
And we didn't reprice them. We kept the
mm,
price as it was when
mhm,
we originally priced them.
mm,
Huge mistake. Um, in a half a year, we sold out of half the
mm.
plushies, and they take several months to
Yeah.
finish because they are all like hand sewn and um so we like go and we look and we're like, man, every time we go to a convention, it's our number one selling item. They're selling out so fast, and we had only the first time we had only gotten 150 of them, right?
I think so. Or
Or
250.
250.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And so we had sold out like 125 really quickly. And it was faster than we'd ever sold any merch. And then we were like, we need to reorder them like now if we
Yeah.
want them to come in the summer. So we go to do that, and the price has gone up
Mhm.
because, of course, it did
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Well, like there was a lot
COVID
during
and
COVID and
everything.
shipping.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
yeah, and so the prices that we were selling the first half at, we literally could not afford to pay for a new
Mhm.
run. And so that's when we went like, okay, um, we want to run a Kickstarter anyway
Mhm.
because we want to use our Kickstarter to run to fund development kits and physical copies. Let's not make that our first Kickstarter.
Mm.
Like, let's have a really great idea how to run a Kickstarter when our game is done, and let's run a Kickstarter now, and we'll get those plushies back. And so that's what we did. And running a Kickstarter is
Yeah.
its own beast.
Yeah. It's
It's
a
a
beast.
different skills that you just don't even know. You don't even know what you need until you're doing it, and you're
Mhm.
like, why didn't we make this thing? I didn't
Mm.
need it.
Mm.
Um, but it's such a cool process, and doing Kickstarter actually made us realize that we don't we don't intend to have a publisher anymore.
Mm.
We tend to self-publish through Kickstarter.
Mhm.
We talk to so many people about running Kickstarters and their experiences with their publishers and why they switched to Kickstarter full time. And it wasn't just game devs, it
Mhm.
was animators, it was
Yeah.
illustrators, it was just everybody. And so we were like, you know what, if
Mhm.
we can do this,
You
that
know,
might be the avenue for
yeah,
us.
it's the same thing with like
Um,
Patreon too. Like people being able to
yeah,
have like some kind of income revenue from that, but like obviously like Etsy, Patreon, like those obviously have a cut too. So it's challenging being able
right,
to like balance like okay, how much am I actually getting from this versus putting in, and
right,
what ways can I be able to have the revenue to do what I really want to do, right?
right, absolutely. We keep
Absolutely.
talking about doing a Patreon, and that's the balance that
Mm,
we're like having trouble figuring
yeah.
out is like what deliverables can we
Yes.
provide monthly
Yes.
that don't push us back even more in our timeline with
Hmm.
everything else that we're doing.
Yeah, that's like a thing that
So
I do know a couple of other people who try to wanna or they would like to be able to go that self-publishing route. Also because of how like the internet now is able to be able to you can garner a following as well as get the word out there like
right,
YouTube like a bunch of different platforms with different social media out there. You can get the word out there pretty quickly. It's also a matter of like uh, going to those like uh, local conventions and being able to grow it organically, that's a thing that is totally doable now. It's mostly a matter of like which kind of audiences resonate with your products, your games, all the all that, and that's why like branding is like I feel like your brand is actually really iconic. So I really
Thank
enjoy
you.
it.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
of course.
Yeah, we even updated our branding a
Mhm.
little bit during the Kickstarter, both for Squirrely Roo and Boba. Yeah, Kyrstin does the branding for Squirrely Roo, and then I do the branding for Boba,
Mhm.
and then we kind of like come together and
Mhm.
try to make sure those things are like cohesive enough,
Mhm.
but stand out on their own, that they can be separate, and that like when they're viewed together, they can like, talk and
Yeah.
have a good time.
Well, that's why like the color choice, the character design, the illustration, all of that is like the iconic part about it. So like both of you are doing great on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's like a good like hour or so of content. So I wanted to thank both you, Ashley and Kyrstin. Do you have like anything else that you want to be able to talk about before we head out?
Yeah, thank you for having us,
Yeah.
Ryan. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. Anything
Hopefully,
that I can do to help, I'm always willing to message and talk about it. So yeah, thank you very
thank you so
much.
much. Yeah, I think if I have a note, it is just that we're working really hard to
Hmm.
get our indie game merchandise in video game
Hmm.
stores. Obviously not like GameStop, like big chains,
Hmm.
but if you know any local stores, let us know.
Hmm.
We're working on that. We have maybe 5 or 6 stores in
Hmm.
the area that have our plushies and like other merch in them, and we're looking to expand that.
Hmm.
And then eventually, when the game releases, to have that partnership with those same people to actually have like physical copies of our
Hmm.
game. And so that would be like a really,
S
helpful from anybody watching this, or
yeah,
like the IGDA Baltimore
yeah.
community or whatever. When you have, if you know of someone, just like tip us off so we can go and check them out and
For
talk to
sure.
them.
Yeah, I feel like if you ever kind of like get to doing like some kind of like tabletop idea, like there's plenty of like the like games workshop kind of places. There's a lot of them around that are both indie as well as like a corporate. But having that paired with your plush, your game, your like tabletop ideas, like there's a lot there that can be a potential avenue for you to engage in. That and I also used to work at a toy and candy company that is also local to the area that I might be able to get you in contact with, maybe for some kind of like production from a toy manufacturing perspective. So maybe there's something in the future there. So let's probably talk
Be
about
super
that
cool.
offline. Kyrstin, do you have anything else to say before we go?
Um, I guess just for anybody watching
Hmm.
who um, is an aspiring indie dev,
Hmm.
like I guess my sister says this thing about um, apple trees, that the best time to grow an apple tree or to plant an apple
Uh,
tree is 10 years ago, but the
true.
second best time is to do it today, right? So
Hmm.
if you're sitting on an idea,
Mm.
I would encourage you to get started. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm.
as soon as you can, like make that dream real, right?
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, you'll learn a lot in the process, and you'll grow with your confidence, your understanding, and hopefully also be able to make a dream a reality, as well as take lessons from that and have a professional connection, and maybe even make a career out of it. So uh, definitely being able to have some kind of inspiration for your younger self, right? Being able
Right.
to say, hey, like when I was young, I wanted to do this thing, right? And being able to have the courage to actually say, hey, I'm going to do that thing, but I don't know where to start, right? And so that's kind of why like being able to have these local communities is invaluable, because it's a touchstone to be able to talk to other people who have a variety of different experiences, and also how to like make my idea a reality.
Yeah, the Baltimore
Absolutely.
indie game scene, I mean, the Baltimore art scene is
Mm.
fantastic.
Mhm.
But the Baltimore indie game scene is so close knit, and people are so friendly. And like, if you ever just don't know where to go, what to do next, just ask somebody. You know, I mean, I think all three of us in this call would absolutely talk to somebody if somebody had a question. But I think that's true for the entire IGDA Baltimore
Yeah.
chapter, and or the Baltimore Indie Games group, other group.
Yeah, the indies, the AAAs, like everybody, DC, like the IGDA in general is full of people with that same kind of mindset and focus on community.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap up pretty much everything. So I want to be able to thank both you very much for your time. And I'm going to say that the last thing that I'm going to have before we go here is that let's see here. Yes, so the Baltimore IGDA, please check out our YouTube channel and our Discord, as well as checking out the IGDA DC Discord as well. BitReactor, my company, they're also having a announcement that they're going to be at let's see. Here we go. So it's going to be at April 19th. So they're going to be there. That's all that I can really talk about with that, but we're pretty excited about it, and I wanted to be able to thank both of you very much. There we go, full screen. All right. Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Kyrstin, for your time. And
Thank you so much for having us.
yeah. I look forward to being able to talk to you again sometime soon. And good luck with everything. So thank you very much. And signing out. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.